Alright everyone, so this chapter was just insane. Oda could not have done a better debut for Imu's fighting ability. To have Imu defeat Zoro and Sanji that easily, like essentially one-shotting both of them, is just something that we have not seen, period, in the post-time skip. Like, Oda will have villains flex, like, have Doflamingo and Sanji fight, and then after a little bit, Sanji basically is unable to hold up to Doflamingo. That sort of thing happens, but this sort of just immediate stomping of both of Luffy's wings, that is just unprecedented in the New World. And I would add that for Zoro in particular, this is a huge deal because this, I would say, is the first time in all of post-time skip that Oda has actually used Zoro as a hype tool. And by hype tool, I mean having a character be defeated with relative ease in order to establish the threat of a new villain. That literally has not happened to Zoro in all of post-time skip. In pre-time skip, this would still happen to Zoro on a semi-frequent basis. I mean, against Mihawk, NL, Aokiji, Lucci, Kuma, it wasn't that surprising of an occurrence during the pre-time skip, but post-time skip, Oda has been keeping Zoro very sheltered, as though Zoro is no longer allowed to be fodderized by some new bad guy. But Oda broke that glass with Imu, and was kind of like, nope, with this guy, there are no exceptions. I think it was a really good point that Oda made to have Zoro finally get a real stomping for the first time in 600 chapters. In this chapter, he finally got the Sanji treatment, while Sanji also got the Sanji treatment. So yeah, I really cannot think of a better way for Oda to just hammer in what a monster Imu is. But it wasn't just the fact that Oda had Imu defeat Zoro and Sanji so easily, it was how fast, efficient, and surprisingly brutal Imu was. The moment I saw Gerd's fingers come off, I was just like, what is going on? Oda does not usually write like this, and if we're being honest, Oda usually doesn't have women in the series get mutilated like that. But it happens so quick and so casually, like we don't even see the cuts happen and we just see the fingers coming off. And it's just an immediate establishing moment that tells us that the tone is now completely different with Imu here. It's time for the heroes to feel a real sense of terror. But first, if you want to use a high-quality VPN for less than $3 a month, Surfshark is offering that deal for my viewers right now. Surfshark VPN is the sponsor of this video, and in case you don't know what VPNs are what most people use when they're online nowadays, as it's a necessity to make sure that your data doesn't get stolen. And Surfshark in particular can even warn you about scam emails. But the best part is that VPNs allow you to change your location online to anywhere that you want on the globe. Let me tell you, that gives you so much more access to so many more movies, TV shows, and live events that are all streaming for free, just in other countries. For example, there are anime that are free for streaming on Netflix, but only in Japan. But with Surfshark, you can just change your location online to Japan and get free streaming with the click of a button. And if VPNs sound too good to be true, that's because most of them are pretty expensive. But Surfshark is a world-class, award-winning VPN with over 4,500 servers in 140 locations that is offering my viewers a deal for less than $3 a month. And if you get it right now, you can keep Surfshark at that price for up to 2 years if you want. And on top of all that, if you follow my link, you can get an extra 4 months free of Surfshark VPN. And if you're still not sure, you can try out Surfshark for free for 1 week to see if you like it. All you have to do is go to surfshark.com/Morge or use code Morge at checkout to get your Surfshark deal today for less than $3 a month and 4 extra months free. Just follow the link or you can scan the QR code below. And then following that moment up with Stanson just losing a leg, but the manner in which he lost a leg was so cool. With us seeing the kick of him kicking Hadruden out of the way in real time, but already the leg has been severed, basically showing us just how close to death Hadruden was right there, that the kick and the slash were essentially simultaneous. And so above all else in this chapter, I just love the tone. I love that oppressive feeling with all the characters across the entire island suddenly worried and scared and stressed out by what is taking place. It feels like everyone in Elbaf is getting very desperate very, very fast. And this is all I want from One Piece. Just give us some tension. This chapter alone already has more tension than the entirety of Wano, except for chapter 1043. But the difference is that 1043 came at the very, very end of the battle against Kaido, whereas Imu is setting this intense and dramatic tone right away from the beginning of the battle. We are not party planning here like we were at the start of the Onigashima raid. The heroes are not high-fiving each other and taking victory for granted before the fight even starts. This is the One Piece I knew and loved for so long, not party planning piece. And I cannot think of a better choice by Oda than for Imu to be the one to bring about the end of party planning piece. The way Imu is depicted in this chapter is just phenomenal. We get a real look at his attitude and personality and demeanor when he is in serious mode, and it is very stoic but very commanding, and he generally feels as though he is above everyone else on the island. That is perfect writing for this character's debut. I also want to give a quick shout out to Growth Stonks, Behenort4556, and Viraj D0311 for correctly predicting the events of this chapter. Make sure to tune into Friday streams every break week to get in on the chapter predictions competitions. I also want to talk about the new insight we seem to get about Imu's powers. So when Imu first arrived in the Gunko avatar form, the ability that he debuted then was Dami Reversi. And of course, that chapter was called Dami Reversi. And so that was sort of the Puppet Master Imu, where we saw that he can quickly create this army of soldiers to fight for him, and you can't really fight against Dami Reversi unless you are Luffy and Loki for whatever reason that is yet to be explained. So it was like, okay, that's cool, that's a really impressive ability, but it does put Imu kind of in the passenger seat. This chapter showcased Imu in the driver's seat, where he's like, okay, I'm just gonna take the wheel myself. And that's why this chapter was called Omen, because it's debuting the ability Omen. So we see the two sides of things. That's Imu's more laid-back, hands-off power, where he's puppeteering others to do the work for him. Then when he's doing the work himself, he's using Omen as his signature ability. And Omen feels so far kind of like a do-everything power. I'm now really uncertain as to whether or not Imu is actually awakened, because we're used to Zoan awakening forms having these dark clouds around them, but it now appears as though Imu's dark flame circle that's surrounding him is actually his Omen rather than the traditional awakened fruit visuals. And I said that the Omen ability kind of feels like it does everything because we saw that it can of course be used offensively for powerful black flame attacks. Some of those attacks even seem like they come to life, as they have little devil faces when Imu shoots them out, but that in itself may be a separate ability. We also of course saw that lots of Elbaf started to come to life in general, like the houses when Imu arrived, and that also seems tied to the Omen ability. So Imu seems like he can maybe even give life to inanimate objects, much like Big Mom. But then Omen was also used to fix Imu's subordinates, so maybe this is tied to how they're able to regenerate in the first place. And the really worrying possibility is that Omen may even seem to give Sommers and Killing Him a power-up, because Sommers was really excited to get the Omen. It seems like Sommers may have just been supercharged in a sense, which is really surprising to me because the God's Knight's Pact as is already gives you a significant buff, presumably through Imu's power. So for Imu to have yet another ability that gives even more of a buff to subordinates, that's a big problem. I will say that this is a small personal thing for me, which is that I think I don't enjoy the further and further we see that the God's Knights are reliant on Imu just giving them buffs, if that is in fact what the Omen is, because I think I find it harder for me to enjoy them as individual villains when their power seems to be based almost entirely on how much power this greater being gives them. It serves to make Imu feel very, very intimidating and powerful, but to me at the expense of giving Imu some cool subordinates as well. So that's a minor personal thing, but again, we still don't know how the Omen works. We don't know if it stacks a boost on top of the existing Holy Knight boost, so that remains to be seen. And finally, we have a very interesting observation from a member of the Voice of the People, my top tier of patrons. So Justin Holland pointed out, scary thought, but what if one of Imu's plans involves fixing his issues with whatever time limit he has during the final war, where he can really go all out? And I think that is a phenomenal observation, because that so far seems to be the limiting factor. It's like, okay, why didn't Imu just come down and wipe out all the pirates and D-Tribe members and so on in the past? It's because there's great risk associated with him leaving Marijua. It seems like it comes at a significant cost. It pains him to do so. It actually damages him to do so. So if he's coming down, it has to be really, really, really worth it. And he seems to have deemed Elbaf to be a spot where it's really worth it because you've got Nika and Nidhogg there. You just gotta do it. So in a sense, Oda's writing Imu perfectly in that we have this all-powerful being who no one can defeat, but we've got the logical in-story reason for why he has to be kept kind of chained down and why he can't just go and solve all of the world government's problems himself. But we've seen Imu's been making moves, like trying to get the Mother Flame so that he can use the ancient weapons again, getting the Pacifista army so that he's got his own army that will do his bidding, the Seraphim, same thing. And so if one of Imu's final things that he's also aiming to accomplish is to fix this sort of weakness of his where he can't fight all out whenever he wants, well then that would make a lot of sense, because that would kind of be the nail in the coffin for all of the good guys, if Imu can suddenly use his powers to their full extent all the time. So with the track Oda's going so far, I would not be surprised if that's the direction that things are headed. And yeah, maybe by the time of the final battle, we will see a full unleashed Imu where he does not have to worry about any sort of drawbacks when he's fighting, and that is a very dangerous prospect indeed. So with that, I'm giving this chapter the easiest 10 out of 10 in the world, and with that, I will talk to you all later. And make sure to get your free trial for Surfshark for less than $3 a month and 4 extra months free. Just follow the link, or you can scan the QR code below.